Hello and welcome to another episode of Footprint. My name is Samuel Atamensa. We'll take a short break. When we come back, I'll have our special guest join us for a wonderful conversation.
His Excellency Professor Barfuour Adjei-Barwuah started his life in academia as a lecturer at the University of Ghana and pursued his graduate studies at the Wisconsin University and continued with his PhD at the University of Indiana. He served as Ghana's ambassador to Japan and the United States of America and contested as a presidential aspirant for the New Patriotic Party in 2007. He tells the rest of his story now.
Welcome back to the program. This is Footprint. Now you know who we are talking about. It's good to have you, Ambassador.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
It's been so tight trying to pin you down at one place.
Well, unfortunately, these days you get so many things on top of you, so you try to juggle.
Deal with each one of them.
Yeah.
But how have you been?
Well, I've been okay, considering I'm an old guy, so.
Old guy. I like the old guy.
Yeah.
Nice. So, Ambassador, tell me, you've been in academia before, is that correct?
Yeah, I started life lecturing at Legon for 3 years.
Okay, which year?
72 to 75.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is post Buzia, or you started when Buzia was in
No, this is post.
Kutua Champon. This is Kutua Champon.
This is post Kwame Nkrumah. That is.
Okay.
I graduated in 1972.
Okay.
No, not 1972.
So Kutua Champon came on board 1972.
Yeah, I came back to Legon to lecture when a Champon was in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So I think I graduated in Legon when it's a very long time ago, you know.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry
Yeah.
about that. Yeah. What I try to do is to use the regimes to try and structure our conversation, since you lived through all.
Yeah, after Nkrumah.
Yeah.
And I went to graduate school in the States.
Where exactly was it?
I went to Wisconsin for starters.
Okay.
Then I ended up doing my PhD in Indiana University.
Jesus Christ. How was it then? It must have been an experience.
Yes, because that was the civil rights era.
That's correct. In the 60s, right?
Yes, in the 60s. I went to the States in 1966.
All right.
And the school year starts normally in the States, like everywhere, in November, September, October, November.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin, when it gets cold, it is very cold.
Real cold.
So I found myself coming from the tropics, going into Wisconsin.
When they've just been done with summer.
Exactly. And I had a teaching assistantship before I got there.
All right.
So my first day in the university was basically also teaching. And we had to take our students on a field trip. I didn't know anywhere. So they organized a field trip for those of us who were tutors, teaching assistants. So I had to go through that experience. Then the winter comes. The thing is, the first day that it really snowed, very cold. And in the dormitory where I was the only person who had a room to himself.
Yeah.
Only because there were 5 Africans. So they paired 2 of them, and I was the only one left. And there was only one single room in the dormitory. So I had that. And fortunately, I got a letter that afternoon. It was a Saturday. And that letter included a tape, one of these reel-to-reel tapes. I immediately rushed to town, bought myself a tape player, and I put the tape, the tape on. When I was leaving home, the high life that was on was, I think, Jerry Hansen's Ne Ne Ne, something like that. So I put the tape in, and that was the first thing that was put on the tape. I found myself telling myself, it was a very emotional afternoon for me. But then, that is how most people start. It is never that rosy. So I had to bear with it.
So you're in Wisconsin for 2 years, right?
I was in Wisconsin for 2 years, and I was in Indiana for 2.5.
Yeah. What's the difference? Wisconsin, Indiana?
Well,
as a black guy, as you put it.
And in those years, I suppose as a black guy, it doesn't make a big difference irrespective of where you are.
Okay.
It's just that circumstances and luck sometimes dictate, what it is. But in Wisconsin, the university tried very hard to make us foreign students, and especially the black ones, comfortable. They usually organize weekends for us to stay with American families and such. So you get some 2 days of respite with people whom you expect would make you feel good. But then also, as far as the student body was concerned, in Wisconsin, we had an international club. So every Friday, we went to the Students' Union, this international club and such. But you also have to make your own friends.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful as to what friends you make.
And then you continued with your PhD is it University of Indiana or Indiana State?
Yeah, University of Indiana.
Okay. And after that, how was life in the US? Did you stay there?
Well, when I graduated, because I went on a University of Ghana scholarship, I believed I had it as my responsibility to come back to Legon and serve. But at that time, the university told me that the availability of spaces, more or less, at the university, at the geography department, was sort of filled up. Fortunately, I had 2 offers. And in the course of deciding which one of them I would go to, Professor Kwabran Ketia came to the campus on some sabbatical or something. So when are you finishing? I finished. So when are you going home? No, I have a job because the university says this is it. So I said, then come to African Studies. So I said, okay, I'll come. So when I turned, especially one of the jobs, it was a bit juicy. When I turned it down, my academic advisor said, what's the matter with you? This is a plum job most people will be looking for. And I said, when I was leaving home, the Ghana I left, I believe, is going to be much better than America, and I want to be there when it happens. He was surprised. And indeed, when I came home, even at Champon's time, and said, Ghana still had a lot of promise, So I didn't regret coming back home. And I went to the Institute of African Studies.
Okay.
But then the geography department went to Professor Kwabran Ketia to get me to agree to teach part for geography and then part for African Studies. I resisted that. But Professor Kwabran Ketia is a very persuasive man. So I said, okay. So I was a lecturer in geography department and a research fellow in African Studies. Yeah.
Okay. So Prof, we will look at your days in Legon as a lecturer, to share some of your experiences. And you're looking at the years 72 to 75, as you said. Who was the Vice Chancellor at the time?
Kwapong.
Professor Kwapong. Good. And who were some of the lecturers that you worked with?
K.V. Dixon was the head of the geography department.
Okay.
Professor Kwabranketa. Then in African studies, there were all these wonderful people.
Okay. Any known names in public life as we know today? Or any of them later went into politics?
No, at least I know that George Bennett was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a lecturer at the time.
Yeah, he was a lecturer at the time. But when we
Same
went
geography, right?
Yeah, geography. When we went in as freshmen, he had just come back to do his research for his PhD. So that is when we met. And then he came back as a lecturer, so we're relating to him. I don't know if you ever met Professor Champon. He was
on the mathematics.
in mathematics. That's right.
Yeah.
Very interesting guy.
Nobody in the 70s and in the 80s and even in the 90s.
Yeah.
Nobody passed through University of Ghana doing mathematics and wouldn't know Professor Champon.
Well, everyone was a student because he was a third year when we were in first year. You couldn't get past, Professor Champon. Because of the kind of person he was.
But he was very good then as a student. He must have been very good as a student.
Oh, he was very good as a student, but also very unusual. Just one thing. According to rules at the time, formal dinner, you have to wear tie and gown.
Which
to
gown?
Come to. When we went as first year, university students went to lectures wearing gowns.
Which gown?
Oh,
the one that people now use for graduation.
Yeah,
there was
one.
You wore for lectures.
Yeah, we wore gowns for lectures. Yes, we were British,
So you were more British than the British themselves.
So we when we went to the first year, we started protesting about this. So we normally asked the lecturer, would you mind if we didn't come in a gown? If they said no, then we don't. So finally, the university said, you don't have to wear gowns to lectures. But in Commonwealth Hall, I don't know about the other hall, I don't remember, we have to wear gowns for formal dinner.
You are in Commonwealth?
Yes.
Wow. I was going to say you don't look it, but...
Well, I was even president of Commonwealth Hall.
Then you don't even look it more. I don't want the Commonwealth people to come and harass my life.
Yeah. So a Champon, following the rules, came to dinner once wearing tie and gown. That was it.
So he was also a Commonwealth guy?
Yeah, Champon was in Commonwealth Hall. He was one of the big-time vandals.
Yeah. This life, eh?
Yeah. So he wore tie and gown. That is it. So you can imagine how careful all of us had to be under those kinds of situations.
Wow.
Yeah, but he was a nice guy.
Very much so. But because he became the one of the most, I don't know whether I should use the word feared. Once you are going to offer mathematics in Legon, one of the reasons some of us dodged Legon mathematics.
Oh, that's right.
I'm telling you, I dodged and ended up in KNUST peacefully.
Well, we all have to make choices, practical choices.
That's good. Yeah. So your days in Legon, how were you relating to you have any memories how you related to the government of the day?
Well, maybe unfortunately for me, when I was JCR president, the government decided that the CPP was going to take over all JCRs in the country.
What?
All the junior common rooms.
You said who was going to take over?
The CPP, the Convention People's Party.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And they were starting with Commonwealth Hall.
No, hang on. When you were a student or when you were...
Yeah, when I was a student.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you were talking about my relationship with the government, and this is where it sort of started. Mm-hmm. And I was called to this meeting one evening, and by my understanding was that I was only going to meet Kofi Bedu, who was then the editor of the Daily Graphic.
Yeah.
But then I found myself in this conference room on top of the JCR, packed, and Mr. Welbeck was the chair, Mr. Kofi Bakun was there, Mr. Kofi Bacha was there, he was the, and then Kojo Addison was there as the head of the Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute.
So let me take it one. Who was Mr. Welbeck?
Mr. Welbeck was one of Kwame Nkrumah's top ministers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember which portfolio?
Mr. Welbeck, most probably, I wouldn't want to get it wrong.
Okay, not a problem. So Mr. Welbeck.
Mr. Kofi Bakun was the Minister for Defense.
Defense. And then Kofi Bacha.
Kofi Bacha was the editor of the, they had this newspaper that they didn't tolerate, to, I've forgotten the name on the newspaper. Mr. Ike Chuba was then the Minister for Education.
Okay. And they were all there?
Yeah, they were there. And the room was packed. And every CPP mogul on campus was also there. So when I arrived, there was this lonesome chair that was left for me. So I went and sat down. And Mr. Welbeck introduced everybody and asked Mr. Kofi Bakun to, as it were, open the meeting. And then he said that the government has decided to take over all JCRs in the country, starting with Commonwealth. So they came to advise me, because at that time I had about 3 weeks toward the end of
Let me put it in context. The JCR as in?
The junior common room.
The facility JCR?
Yeah.
Or the management of
the management of the students. Yeah. That was the junior common room.
Yeah.
Was basically the management of student affairs in the hall.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is what the government wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And when they were through, it was very difficult for me to react, looking at the kinds of people who were there. But anyway, I did say that I have no problem with that. The only issue is that the JCR is run on the JCR Constitution. But see, the condition that they were given was that if you wanted to contest for any JCR position, you have to declare that you were an Nkrumahist. So I pointed out that the JCR, under the Constitution, doesn't make any provision for anybody to declare by way of requirement that he is an Nkrumahist. And therefore, I cannot enforce that.
So what was the final outcome?
The final outcome was that the CPP people would write to me asking for a constitutional amendment, and therefore I'll call a meeting for this to be discussed. But then they didn't do that. So they contested the elections anyway, and all of them lost. Yeah. And
so how did that play out while you were lecturing?
Whilst I was lecturing?
Yes, so I wanted to find out how, as lecturers, the university community, you engaged the Champon government of the day. remember.
Well,
But let me take a quick break, and then when
Sure.
I come back, we can. So you are listening to Ambassador Barfuour Adjei-Barwuah, and he's been ambassador to a number of countries. We'll be talking about that very soon. But this is Footprint. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Footprint, and I have my guest here, the ambassador. He's been ambassador to Japan.
Yeah, Japan. At the time I was in Japan, I was also the High Commissioner to Singapore, Australia,
Hey!
New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea.
Really?
Yeah, but when I went to Australia, and that, see, during Rawlinson's time, Australia broke diplomatic relations with us. So when I went, to Japan, and I had responsibility, and I went to Australia, fortunately, the day I presented my credentials, that was the day that the Iraq war started.
Wow.
So Australian government was in some kind of emergency meeting. So when I finally met with the foreign minister, I said, well, why don't you reopen your High Commission in Accra? And then he said that we were the ones who closed ours first, so we should reopen first. And I said, no, we are a new government. Invest some confidence in us. So you reopen yours first. And Australia very quickly reopened their High Commission.
High Commission, yeah.
So I spoke to the bosses there, and I said, well, this is the situation, so we should also reopen ours. So we reopened our High Commission in Australia, and I made the argument with the government that in that case they should appoint a High Commissioner to Australia who could take care of New Zealand and Papua, and then I will keep Japan and Singapore. So that is how it panned out. Yeah. So after about 2 years, I was only holding Australia, I was holding Japan and Singapore.
Wow.
And the new ambassador, the new High Commissioner went to Australia.
And Papua New Guinea?
Yeah.
You went there?
Yeah, I went there. I went to. It was very interesting going there. And in fact, when I got there, I think that time the Prime Minister had gone up country. So I think I presented my credentials to the Foreign Minister. And in my conversations with them, I think they had read a bit about my background. So they asked me to help them put some kind of tourism packaging together for them to promote, the industry. But unfortunately, I couldn't get around to doing it, which I regret. But
you were too busy at the time.
Yeah, handling those.
Yeah. So then we can come back to the whole trajectory, how you left University of Ghana into corporate life.
Well, at the time that I came to Legon didn't have too much money for research. And I was into urban affairs and urban development and that kind of thing. And the money that was available wasn't going to cut the mustard for the kinds of things I wanted to do. So after 3 years, I decided that I would take sabbatical, come into town and find a job, make a bit of money, and then go back to do my research. And in fact, it was a friend who told me that the Commissioner for Trade and Tourism was looking for somebody to go to the Tourist Board, and was also looking for somebody to help with import programming.
So this is the Commissioner under Kutua Champo.
Yeah.
You remember
this was
the name?
Colonel Idisa.
Idisa, yeah.
Unfortunately, I understand he passed away. So I said, okay, let me go and ask him. So I was with this friend in a car, I was giving him a ride. So we went by the ministry. And then I left him in the car, went upstairs. So I wanted to see the commissioner. So the commissioner is traveling tonight, so he can't have time. And so tell him I'm the one looking for him. Because when I came first, every time the government did something that I didn't like, I wrote. So a lot of the commissioners knew me on paper, but we have never met. So he told them to tell me that, okay, I should wait, he will see me before he leaves the office. So I came and told my friend that the commissioner will see me. So, and he said, well, if you came and I'm not in the car, it means I've taken a taxi out, so you can just go. Fine. Finally, he met me. And he said, oh, it is the tourist board that he was interested in, getting somebody there, because he wants to withdraw the officer he sent there temporarily. So if it's a job that I think I could do, I should go and write an application. So I wrote an application. And then after 2.5 weeks or something like that, they called me up for some kind of interview. It was him and somebody else. And they said, I can have the job. So I applied to Legon for sabbatical. Legon gave me the sabbatical. And when the sabbatical was ended, I wrote to the government that my sabbatical was ending. So if they wanted me to stay, then they have to negotiate with the university.
University of Ghana, yeah.
And I know that there was this to and fro between the university and the government. Finally, the government wrote that because of the exigencies of the public services, the university should agree for me to stay. But I learned last week that the university said that I vacated my post, even though they were taking my superannuation whilst I was there. But, that is how, I ended up at the tourist board.
Okay. Did you come back to the university to teach?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Because I stayed at the tourist board for almost 8 years.
Wow.
And then I resigned. Yeah.
So this will be which years?
I resigned in...
no, I mean, you started, is it 76 or 75?
75.
75.
Yeah, so I was there for up to 83 or so.
Okay.
That was during the Rawlings era.
So you were there through and through.
Yeah, I was
through
there.
Different regimes.
Yeah.
From Achampon, through Akufu, through Rawlings 1, through Liman,
yeah,
and through Rawlings 2.
Yeah,
you are a
there,
saint, man.
While I was there, I ended up being in the guard room for 12 days.
You ended up being where?
I ended up in the guard room for 12 days.
As a result of what?
Because I resigned. Yeah, I couldn't take the tenor of the administration,
Yeah.
and I think the job was getting...
So at which point did you resign?
I resigned in just about 1982.
Okay, so this will be under Jerry Rawlings.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So I resigned.
And when you resigned...
They picked me up.
For resigning?
Yes. They picked me up because I had been approached before if I could sort of join the government as initially minister for something, And the person who approached me was a friend of mine. And I told him that, look, as far as I'm concerned, this government is in position only because some people feel that the only way they can make money is disturbing the system. And you know that I will find it difficult subscribing to that, so I won't. And in fact, Kwesibo bless his soul, the day he was made the Minister for Finance, he came to see me at that time.
Because you knew him from University of Ghana.
Oh, yeah. He was a friend of mine. And said, oh, look, if we don't go and join this government, some rascals are going to be in it, and we are all going to suffer for it. So, Kwesi, this one, I can't, so. And I think that afternoon, they named him as a finance minister. So I thought he wanted to pick up my concurrence about. So I did it. And it became rough after that, because the day I resigned, I wrote my resignation on Thursday before I left the office. Took it